How you doing?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Good. It's been quite the week, or quite
Yeah.
the like 2 weeks, but yeah, I've been pretty good. Just a bunch of crazy stuff with the kids and my dog and the house and everything. But we're we're recovering.
Oh, good.
By the way, where do you live?
So I'm in Dublin or Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, and you're in Dublin. Gotcha. We actually have one of our
Mhm.
advisors lives in Dublin.
Oh, nice.
I've never been. My wife's from Ohio, but from she's from this like island off the coast of Sandusky called Put Bay.
Okay.
It's like this tiny little island. So, but I've never been to Columbus. I have to get there.
So I'm originally from Chicago. So Columbus, we're still kind of exploring it, but it's really nice. It's great. It's clean. It's safe. It's got nice restaurants. So
Yeah, like tons of restaurants, right? Isn't it? It's sort of like a breeding ground for the growth of restaurants, right?
absolutely. Well, yeah, because you got OSU, so you have this like ever influx of young generations every year coming in for college. So there's always a really diverse demographic around here to try as a testing ground.
Yeah. Well, anyways, welcome to the show. I didn't say that. If it's cool, I just want to learn a little bit about your background. Like, first off, where are you from?
So I'm originally from Chicago.
I know you said Chicago, but
Yep.
like, are you like in the like from the city? Are you like suburbs? Like,
Gotcha.
where'd you grow
So
up?
I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and then we moved to kind of the southeastern suburbs, Lamont. I'm not sure how familiar you would be with that. But so I'm from there. I went to school in Denver. So I lived in Colorado for about 4 years. Got my degree in culinary arts and food service management, and then came back to Chicago, and have been there until I moved here.
So did you grow up in the suburbs? Or did
I
you
did.
grow up in the...
Half and half. Yeah. So half my life in the city, half my life in the suburbs.
Yeah, gotcha. And then you went to JWU in
I
Denver, right?
did. Yeah. I did Johnson and Wales Denver back when it was still there.
I went to Johnson and Wales in Providence
All about that. All right.
I think many years before you, but
It's been many years for me too. So don't worry about that.
I think I graduated in '99, I think.
Okay.
But it was a good school. Anyways, so okay. First question, because we did a little digging.
You did digging?
You're in a bit of competitions, right?
Yes.
I know you're doing like this sort of sandwich competitions, and you do a bunch of barbecue competitions. What's going on with that? Like, have you been doing that like your whole career? Or?
I'm very concerned on where you were digging. So yeah, actually, yeah. So
I don't know. I just got some info.
some buddies of mine and I back in college started a barbecue competition team. So I've been competing on the barbecue circuit for 15, 16 years now. So we do a big competition down in Texas called Austin Rodeo Barbecue Cook-Off. And it's a huge event that is raising money for scholarships for kids to go to college in Central Texas. And so all these barbecue competition teams, they come in and we set up, and it's free to the public, free food, free booze, live music. We're feeding them all this food. And while we're feeding them, there's tip jars, right? So they tip for the free food, free booze. And those tip jars is what raises money that goes into the scholarship fund. So we're participating in that while also competing in all of the entries. So brisket, ribs, chicken, beans, Bloody Mary. There's potluck, which is anything you want as long as it's not a dessert. And then sauce. So there's 4 categories of sauce: mustard, tomato, specialty, and vinegar. So it's so much fun. My buddies, we started it, again, when we were in college, because we knew what it was like to have to pay for college. So we really wanted to kind of give back, and raising the money was really important to us. And we just fell in love with barbecue at that time. So that was that's been a big part of my life for most of my career. But along with that, I've been doing other competitions. When I was in Chicago, I would compete in this competition called Culinary Fight Club. So it was a group in Chicago that would host these themed competitions every month, and chefs would come and participate. People would come and they'd vote on the winner, and if you won, you got like the golden ticket to the World Food Championship. So we did that a couple times. Went down to Alabama, competed in the World Food Championship. We didn't win. I think we took 13th or something like that. But competition, it's been in my blood, right? I love competing. I love the thrill of it, and it's exciting. So it's been a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Okay, I have a bunch of questions here. So
Please
first,
go.
So you started this competition in Texas? This
No.
barbecue
We didn't
competition?
start it. No. We formed
Oh, you
a
just started
team.
going to it.
Yes, yeah. We
Gotcha.
formed a team, and then as a team, we have been
Cool.
going to this competition for the last 16 years.
So you've been going to that every year for 16 years?
Every year for 16 years. There was only one that we didn't go to, and that was when COVID closed it in 21.
That's crazy. Who goes to these competitions? Like, what's like the archetype of people that are going to this?
I mean, in Central Texas, so it is everybody. Everybody from.
Are there also like barbecue restaurants that come as well?
A couple teams have restaurants as kind of like their main day to day, but these are circuit competitors, right? So it was the LCBS, the Lone Star Barbecue Society sanctioned. They recently switched it to Championship Barbecue Alliance, so it's a certified competition with judges and ranking and whatnot. And I mean, people travel all over the U.S. to these types of competitions, and this is just one of on the circuit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you got all the big boys that you see that go to all of them. And there's the Memphis and Meez, and there's the Kansas City American Royals. And so this is just another big circuit. I mean, there's the Houston Rodeo even has a barbecue cook-off that's really big. So it's just one of in those kind of circuits.
So I have a lot of questions about barbecue, by the way. So we're gonna jump into that. But
hey, you're more than welcome to come and party with us next March when we compete. So.
If I can get out a couple of days off from the fam, maybe I'll do that, or I'll bring them.
Hey, it's family friendly.
I bet it is. We love barbecue. I'm in New York, and this place called Hometown Barbecue that I really love. I don't know if you've ever been. But when they have when they have the competitions, is there like a bias when the competition is in Texas versus in Tennessee versus North Carolina, because they're such different? Like, how do they judge?
So depending on the circuit you're on, depends on like the parameters of the rules, right? So chicken entries that are Kansas City KCBF style have to be are a different presentation than the Championship Barbecue Alliance. So depending on which circuit you're on, depends on the rules of how you have to plate things. But when it comes down to the judging, it's the luck of the draw, right? Like you get 6 people at a table, and you gotta hope that you got a good group of 6, and they taste it and they evaluate it, and then you get ranked, and that's kind of where you start to fall.
It's
cool. It's crazy, and it's really cool. And I mean, you're cooking for the judges, and you don't know who the judges are. You don't know what they're looking for. One year they could be looking for something super spicy or something a little sweet, a little smoky. So it really takes a lot to like dial in and figure out what works.
Who are these judges? Are they
they could be you, like, if you would like to sign
regular
up.
People?
Yep. They have to go through a course and get certified. So you don't have like Aaron
Franklin on the on the judging panel kind of thing?
No.
Gotcha. Okay, well, I had more questions about your background and things, but let's just jump into barbecue, because I mean, it's such a like a unique part of America.
Mm-hmm.
But when you hear barbecue, you think of ribs, you think of like whatever, pulled pork and brisket. But for you, I mean, you've been doing this for 16 years now. You clearly love barbecue. How do you define what barbecue is?
You'll hear people call it a bunch of different things. Barbecue to me is the cooking technique, right? It's over live fire, low and slow, and then the flavors change based off of the types of woods you're using, or the seasonings, or the sauces, and that's where you start to branch out into regional barbecue, whether it's Texas style or Carolina or Kansas City. But to me, it's really just that technique of just low and slow, managing the fire, working with meats that aren't typically fancy cuts. It takes a lot of time, and it's you really get an appreciation for for food when you're sitting there for 16 hours babying it, making sure it goes really well for it to come out right. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at.
So yeah, so low and slow and open fire of some kind, and as long as it's that works.
But for me, yes. Now again, there's other avenues, right? There's pellet grills and there's charcoal and there's all sorts of fuel, but it's a fuel source, I guess you can say. Have
you ever seen, people apply that to fish?
I have. I've seen in competition. I've seen quite a few. We would typically, so when we did competition, we would always do a whole salmon. So kind of like you would do a whole hog, we would get the whole salmon head on and, fillet it out and stuff it cool. And then put that on the smoker and cook that. And then just like flake the fish off to eat. Not necessarily fish, but aquatic. We've done gator.
I bet octopus
we've done a whole,
would be really good.
Octopus, yes. Charred, smoked. The problem with octopus though is that's something you got to do like real quick, right? Like you got to do a real quick cook so it doesn't get overcooked and rubbery. But hey, smoke is a great flavor driver. Then it doesn't necessarily have to be a 16-hour brisket. If you can do a quick smoke on anything, it's a lot of fun.
What's your take on liquid smoke?
In regards to
like
cheating?
Is it always, never, don't ever use it?
No.
Even if it's good?
It's a tool. It's a resource. It just depends on what application you're using it and form and function. It's an easy cheat. If you're trying to really get that smoky flavor, but I think that there are better ways to capture that. And it, again, over a grill or really hard searing and just getting char marks to kind of emulate smoky flavor is more the route I prefer to go.
Yeah, for sure. It's also more fun. In my backyard, we have all these different apparatus for cooking over fire.
Oh, fun.
And like the cachina and things like that. But every once in a while, like in the winter, I'll just get like a pork butt, and in the rub, I'll just use a bunch of smoked salt and a little bit of liquid smoke, and I'll sous vide it, and I'll sous vide it for like 24 hours, and then just char it on the grill after, and it works pretty good. But I always feel like I'm cheating, it's like I'm doing something wrong by doing it, even though it tastes really good.
No, I mean you're cooking. That's what it is.
Yeah. So, okay, you've done all these competitions, and I imagine you also, I mean, first of all, and we'll get into City Barbecue, obviously, it's a big part of this, but you eat, I'm sure you eat a lot of barbecue too. Like, what for you is the difference between like good barbecue and holy shit, this is fucking delicious? I mean, the delicious part we all know, right? Because that's like, if it's good, it's good. But, maybe subjectively, like what makes barbecue really, really good? I know you want like the sort of like the the smoke line and things like that, but what are you looking for to see like that brisket is spot on versus that's a pretty good brisket?
You're obviously visual, right? You want to make sure that it's a nice cut. You got that smoke ring. There's a really good bark to it. The bark has like that tacky texture. But when you eat it, like you want it to melt in your mouth. You want it to be moist and easy. It's not tough or chewy, but you get all those flavors. You get beefy, meaty umami, but you also get a little bit of smoke, and then you get whatever that rub is. If it's a typical, salt, pepper, garlic, you kind of get those bites of pepper in there, and it's just really well balanced. That's what, for me, sets brisket high above a standard, is if it hits all of those points of visual, texture, mouthfeel, and flavor. I mean, that's a rock star right there. And believe me, I've had plenty of bad briskets over my years. So,
all right. So, other than City Barbecue, obviously, like, what are some of your favorite barbecue spots in the country?
Oh gosh, recently, so Charleston, Lewis Barbecue is top notch. John Lewis he's got 2 locations there, one in Charleston and one in Greenville, South Carolina. They do some really good brisket. I really like that. I like have you been?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but like I liked it more than Roddy Scott's. That's like a bad thing to say, but
no, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong. I mean, it's a style. He does a lot of really good whole hog. We went to one of his locations. So we do these barbecue tours at least once or twice a year where we pick a city and we just like house 8 to 10 different barbecue spots in the course of like 2 days.
Is it your team?
Yes. Yeah, my team. So it'll be myself or, my bosses, the CMO, the CEO, the founder. I bring a couple folks from marketing or
City
culinary.
Barbecue team.
For City Barbecue, yes.
Not
Yes.
not your competition team.
No. My competition team, most of the boys still live in Denver while I'm here in Ohio. So when we try to get together every once in a while, we try some new spots.
Gotcha. So that's cool. So the City Barbecue crew all goes and
we do. Yeah, we try and get out and see what the independent chains are doing that are fun and funky. But yeah, so Lewis Barbecue is definitely an awesome spot. We were in Austin last summer. Interstellar Barbecue was killer. They did a really great job. La Barbecue in Austin has some of the best house-made sausages that I think I've ever tried. There was this great food truck called Briskets that did scratch-made biscuits and brisket sandwiches. And it was, it was delightful. Absolutely delightful. But there's some really cool stuff out there. Like we saw this place called KG Barbecue that was Texan Egyptian fusion. So they did like lamb ribs with pomegranate molasses barbecue sauce and like these like rice bowls that had smoked pork with like pomegranate and like all of like the Mediterranean fixings you get with a bowl. So, there's so many really cool spots out there that you can't go wrong.
Yeah. There probably is these spots around that, and I just don't know enough of them, but there's so many other cuts and different like cultures that would apply so well to American barbecue. Like lamb belly would be dope. It's like, like doing lamb belly in a, like low and slow in a smoker, or like, obviously like there's a ton of pork cuts that would work really well. But you don't see a lot of it. Like, have you seen any other like barbecue adjacent type restaurants that you really like that are doing very sort of like close to American barbecue, but with other flavor profiles or cuts?
There is a spot in Portland. Is it EDP? EEPX? EDP?
Maine or Oregon?
Oregon. They are a Thai Vietnamese-esque barbecue spot. Like it's a total fusion.
Yeah.
But so they'll smoke their briskets.
That would be good.
Yeah, so they'll smoke their briskets, but then they'll do like very heavy traditional Asian dishes, whether it's like a noodle dish or like a curry or anything along those lines. I think that is some cool stuff. Is watching the really hot fusion spots just kind of come together with, it's an element of barbecue, but it's like really true to roots and it brings them together. Those are the locations I definitely seek out if I have an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean those Southeast Asian flavors play so well to smoke. And whenever I do like a suckling pig every year. There's a farm down the road for me that they get like really nice, like the actual suckling, like the 30 pounders. And I just do like a fish sauce, chili, lemongrass, kaffir lime, garlic shallot kind of marinade, like very Southeast Asian, and just like let the whole thing marinate for a day. And it just like that smoke with like fish sauce and chilies and lime is just so freaking good. I wish more people would do that.
Oh, it sounds delightful. I mean, just say that sounds fantastic. But yeah, I mean, the flavors it's everything you expect from barbecue, right? Barbecue is very umami and rich and savory, so are these Asian flavors. It's just a different type of flavor, savory. So that's why I think they pair so well together. It's a lot of fun to see what those things do.
Are there like purists that like get upset when they see other like non-traditional barbecue?
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's always somebody that's like, this is barbecue. This is the way I've always done barbecue. Anything other than this is not barbecue. But the world's changing. I mean, people are looking for new and exciting things. They like to have a little bit of that familiar, whether it is still brisket or pork or chicken, or just cooked over smoke. But they want to try something new. They want to try the flavors that are a little unexpected or might give them a little bit of risk. But it's still comforting because they recognize kind of the majority of what the item is.
Do you have a preference on wood that you like to use for smoking?
Hickory is a real good workhorse. It's a good level set, easy wood, very flexible. It's what I use in my day to day. But, depending on what you're trying to achieve, leveraging different types of wood for flavor is a lot of fun. So I've done some work around oak. So like that Texas oak is definitely different than a hickory when you side by side them. And then fruit woods, mixing in kind of like a cherry or apple, but it's always a mix. I never like fruit woods on their own because they're really delicate and it doesn't burn right. So it's always got to be like a mix of fruit and hickory or mesquite.
Yeah. Okay. Next barbecue question. I always think about like when I'm at a really nice like sushi spot and I have to ask soy sauce or no soy sauce. And with barbecue, a lot of times the same thing. It's like, do you put sauce on it? Do you not put sauce on it? So one, do you have like preferences of when you do not put sauce on something? Like what are cuts or things where you're like, don't put sauce on there?
I mean, it depends on how good the barbecue is, right? If it's bad barbecue, like you need a little sauce.
You need sauce.
Yeah. No, yes and no, right? Like if the barbecue is like subpar, a little sauce will take it a long way. But that sauce really is a complementary flavor. So, I love my ribs sticky, saucy, tacky, right? Like I love that Cheeto effect that when you're eating the rib and you put the rib down, you still kind of have it on your fingers. Brisket, I'm a purist. I am not a sauce fan on my brisket. Pork depends on how I'm having it. If I'm eating it plain or on a sandwich. So it can go a couple different ways.
So when you're doing pulled pork, by the way, I feel like I always over sauce. Like when you pull it and you start adding some sauce to it. Do you add sauce when to the pulled meat, or you just have it on the side?
Personally,
yeah, you personally.
I put it on the side.
Yeah, so you literally just pull the meat.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing too, and maybe this is with your suckling pig. When you're pulling that meat, all of the seasonings are on the outside, right? And then you're getting all that meat in the middle that didn't really get good penetration of the seasonings. So when you're pulling it, adding a little bit more salt just kind of brightens and wakes up kind of the natural flavors of that pulled pork. So why I wouldn't say sauce it unless you really like saucy pulled pork. Try like a salt, pepper, garlic seasoning in the meat when you pull it, just to kind of like elevate the natural flavors of the pork.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah, and all those juices from the pork are also good there. When you're eating, I promise this is going to be your last barbecue question for a little bit. I mean, at least your personal barbecue stuff. What do you like to drink when you're eating barbecue?
I mean, you can't go wrong with beer, right? I'm a fan of some Lone Star. Oh yeah, you got to have a beer in barbecue.
Yeah, I know. I miss beer. I developed an allergy to live yeast like 14 years ago or something, and so no beer, wine, sake. Recently, over the last like 6 months, I've actually started to like introduce it back in.
Okay.
But I haven't had a beer in 14 years.
Oof. Well,
I used to own a restaurant in Brooklyn, a few of them, that we had this beer made for us by a company called Six Point, called Bark Red Ale. And the restaurant was called Bark. And I would just drink this red ale all the time. I mean, I wasn't like, drinking morning to night, but like, would have a beer at night after work. And I think it just had a lot of yeast in it, and over time, like had some sort of sensitivity. But yeah, it's been like 14 years. I miss beer.
Oh wow.
Okay. we're gonna I wanna ask a bunch of questions about City Barbeque, but before we get into that, I didn't realize your background in sort of R&D before you got to the City Barbeque. So you were at this place called CSSI.
Yes.
And from what I understand, you're developing like menus for like Popeyes, Chick-fil-A's, TGI Fridays, that kind of stuff, inspired brands. And you were there for a while, right?
I was there for about 10 years.
Wow, that's nuts.
I know.
So, what was it like? Like, can you know what was that like? Presenting and developing, products for those kinds of companies. What was the process like?
The R&D the R&D world is so unique. Not a lot of people know it exists. I mean, back when I went to college, this field didn't really exist. It was always food scientists. That was really all you get a food science degree and you go work with chemicals and build out it in manufacturing. And even now today, Johnson & Wales has a research and development program. Like they'll
Really?
teach you all. Oh yeah. They'll go call your alma mater, right? Take a look. No, so it's really interesting kind of the way the R&D world has exploded. And the last the 10 years that I spent working with CSI, so they're a food service agency based out of Chicago. It was so intriguing, right? So we were always constantly on top of trends, seeing what the newest, hottest things were, really understanding what consumers were looking for. And because we weren't working with one specific brand, we really had to have our finger on the pulse of everything and really know what was going on in the food service industry. So really got to meet a lot of great people and work with a lot of great folks. But it was exciting, right? So we would work with the chain and understand, what their brand is all about and what the menu strategy is and what they're looking for. And it could be anything from, hey, we're developing a brand new burger, singular burger, to I need to develop a whole new restaurant, soup to nuts, right? Help me figure it out. So it's a really cool, diverse world where you get to do a lot of really fun, weird things and travel a lot. I mean, I've traveled all over the U.S. to corporate headquarters to present to their teams and showcase food and develop these recipes for them to then take internally and build out and then potentially launch and put on their menus. So it's exciting. It was always something new, something different, but working from one day you'd be working on a sauce project for a burger chain. And then the next day you could be making beverages for a chicken chain. And then you could be making breakfast for a brand new restaurant that doesn't exist yet. So it was very, very interesting. I also did a lot of work on retail product development. So working with food service manufacturers that were developing a new product line that went into grocery stores. So we would help them develop a strategy on, where their gap was in the industry and where their capabilities could play, and then help them develop those products and then work with their teams to commercialize them and bring them to life and then see them on the grocery shelves about 6 to 8 to 12 months later.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a pretty awesome world. I remember this must have been 20 years ago, like in between restaurants. I left this restaurant I was cooking at and I was about to go to another one, but I had like a summer and I was doing like a little bit of that work for this company called Food Group. And I remember doing menu development for craisins.
Mm.
And I was like, this is a lot of fun. Like I was just, just generating like, coming up with like 50 different things to do with craisins. And I'm like, wow, this could be a cool job. I ended up, obviously going back to restaurants, but I just remember like it was like a lot of fun. And I loved like there was sort of almost like no boundaries because you could kind of do, anything and then dial it back.
Mm-hmm.
But I am curious, you talked about like you need to stay on top of trends. How did you do that? Did you just go eat at a bunch of places? Was it
yes.
Like,
Yes. No, I'm not. I know, right? It's a tough job. I got to fly all over the world and eat at all the great restaurants. Yeah. So we did that. We were constantly keeping an eye on what the local cities were doing, what was hot, what was popular. We worked with a lot of database groups like Data Essentials and Technomic to really pull reports to understand purchase intent from consumers and what the trending flavors were and where they were going. Really understanding what was hot now that fits, let's say, a QSR chain versus what is hot for like an independent restaurant, and that could span 4 years, right? It could be I'm trying to think of a really good one. Let's say 10 years ago, hot honey didn't exist in the Chick-fil-A,
mm-hmm.
Wendy's world, right? But it was really popular at fine dinings or pop-ups or independent spots. So really understanding what the trajectory of that trend would be and how long it would take so that we can develop. Because again, these recipes that we were creating for these restaurants, it wouldn't hit their menu for almost a year or 2 years, right? So it takes a good, depending on the chain and how big the brand is, it could take anywhere from 8 to 18 months before one menu item goes from an idea on a paper to the restaurant.
No, I mean, for sure, it makes a ton of sense. I mean, how often was it sort of the, not top down is the wrong word, but like, finding the thing that was working at the Nomas, the very high end places that you're like that trickled down to the thing that you'd start then developed for, these sort of more casual brands.
It's those things that kind of take. I mean, truffle. Truffle is a really great example, right? Truffle has always lived in that high end world, right? It's a premium ingredient. It's expensive. It's fancy. But then you're starting to see people like understand what it is and then what flavor it can add and where it could play. And then all of a sudden it's on loaded fries at Carl's Jr., right? So now the everyday consumer has access to this premium luxury ingredient that typically only lived in the fine dining world. So it's interesting to see how those ingredients move, but years. It could take years before that one cool trend makes it all the way down.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's actually just a macro kind of example of what happens in general. I was doing this panel with actually some of the chefs from Noma and this really amazing bartender and a food scientist a month or two ago in Philly at the chef conference. And we were talking about like how they do R&D and it takes, the amount of time it takes. And we found this sort of parallel to the fashion world where you see these things in the couture, that, a new color, a new pattern. And then 4 years later, it's at Target on their t-shirts, And it's the same thing I think happens often with food and really with any craft or art, right? It's like you have this sort of net new kind of idea that has to start at the top because it's a little bit novel and then it works its way down. I am curious though, like when you're developing a new menu item for like a Chick-fil-A or something like that, what's the genesis? Are they giving you like hey, this is what we're looking for, or do they just say we want something new and then you have to decide what that is?
It could be a little bit of both, truly. Sometimes they don't even know what they're looking for, and then it becomes a research project into where they're currently playing, where their competitors are playing, and what that gap looks like, and then focusing in on that gap and figuring out what cool menu items can fill that opportunity space that they could then launch and own it. So there's a lot of that around there, but then there's also brands that are like, look, we know where we want to play. We know that sandwiches are our workhorse and we want to leverage sandwiches and give me sandwiches. So it could be a little bit of both, but it's always great when they give you all that information and you're like, all right, I know my guardrails. Now I can have fun and really hit the mark. Because when you've got a huge blue sky, which again, blue sky ideas are so much fun, they don't always hit, right? Like you get 2 out of 10 that might make sense. And again, even still, when you know what you're working against, you might not hit the target either. But it's nice to have guardrails when you're kind of ideating around some new ideas.
Yeah. And how much time in general are you and your team spending, or were spending when you were there, like on the iteration, the iterative part of this before you actually presented it to the brand? And then sort of, if you could just couple that with like, how are you sort of synthesizing the feedback that you would get along the way to figure out like, hey, this is done now?
Yeah. So, I mean, typically a project could take anywhere between 2 to 4 months, depending on, the size of it. One of my favorites that I did, and this was years and years ago. I say years and years. It was pre-pandemic. I was working with the folks from Doghouse, and they actually take this back. My other favorite one was I was working with the folks from Cholula, and they were really wanting to, make the statement of them being, an authentic Mexican brand. They've got quality ingredients, premium. It's a premium hot sauce, and it's approachable, and it's got this brand following, and it's got a whole lot to it. And so we really worked to build out a strategy. And one of their target customers was Qdoba. So we worked with the Qdoba folks, and we had probably about 2 to 4 months to get ready and really figure out how Cholula as a brand would fit their menu. And whether it was, a topical sauce or a new sauce or, a cooking ingredient in the proteins that they cook back at house. And so we went to a bunch of different Mexican restaurants and we tried a bunch of different things. And we tried all the hot sauces with all of the meats and really worked to figure out how that product can complement their menu. And we ended up launching, we presented a Cholula hot honey chicken to them, and among other things. And it was a really good chicken that was grilled and it was marinated in this Cholula hot honey sauce. And it just really, and then we worked with them to commercialize it, right? So we had to formalize all the recipes for them and make sure that it worked in their kitchens and how they were able to test things. And then they put it out into a test market and it tested really well. So it went out to core as an LTO. And actually, I think it's still on their menu today. And this is probably about 6-7 years ago. So it's really kind of cool to see all that hard work of the prep, right? Doing the research, trying a bunch of foods, making the recipe not once, not twice, but 10 times to make sure you got it right, presenting it to those brands, and then making sure they have all the tools they need to commercialize it internally, and then getting it to test, and then hearing their feedback that their customers loved it, or that their sales were great, or that their customers didn't like it and it just didn't work. So it's a really interesting path to see it go from my idea all the way to an LTO poster in 150 stores.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's like such a different experience, when you're doing R&D for, a restaurant where you have 1 or 2 or 3 or something. You see the impact obviously because you see your customers coming in, but it's got to be pretty amazing to develop a dish that is in just tons of restaurants across the country, which by the way, you're now doing it with, City Barbeque as well, but that's got to be pretty cool to see that, maybe to go somewhere and know like, hey, I had a huge part in that. You must feel some of that today because now we're going to transition into City Barbeque. But I'd love to just to take us there. Like, what do you think was your biggest takeaway from your decade of doing R&D for those big brands that you're using today?
Yeah, the biggest takeaway is, not every idea is the best idea out there. You got to keep throwing them out there. You got to keep trying. You got to figure out what works for the target consumer or the brand or whoever it is. But letting it go, right? Food is so personal. You spend 2 to 4 months on this one recipe and you've done it 100 times over. And even when you cook for your family, right? Like you have this personal attachment to the meals that you feed people. And so you're so proud of these ideas. And, sometimes you think they're great, but they turn out that they're not. You have to be okay with that to then say, okay, great. What didn't work? What can I change to make it better, to move on and just be a little bit better every day? And that was a really big learning curve because I did so much R&D for so many different people, so many different brands. You constantly didn't know who your guest was. So you had to hit a bunch of targets all at once. So that was probably the biggest takeaway. Moving into this role, learning who our customer was and really just knowing that, hey, not every idea is going to be a winner, but there are going to be ones that are, and you got to be okay with it.
All right. Anyways, back to City Barbeque.
Yes.
I am like super curious. My team probably knows a lot of this, about this answer than I do, but like the average day in the life or a week in the life of Jess at City Barbeque.
I eat a lot of brisket. Let's put it that way. A week.
A lot of QA on barbecue.
You'd be surprised. Hey, we got to do yield studies. We got to make sure that we know, because we sell meat by a pound. Like I need to know what my yield on this expensive meat at 74 locations. That it cooks differently. So yeah, we do a big meat study every 4 to 6 months, and that's literally cooking 10 to 12 briskets, 10 to 12 pork shoulders, 6 to 8 turkeys, 20 racks of ribs, all at once, right? Like we load up the smoker, we cook them, and we pull them out, and we weigh everything, and we trim it, and we taste it, and we QA it, and then we start messing around with other things to see how far we can take the meats. So So those days are fun,
That
right?
is so cool.
When
I
I've
didn't
got
know that
like
you
20
do that.
briskets. Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But other than that,
I had no idea. Wow.
we're constantly, developing new exciting menu items. Always working on our LTO program and figuring out what the next fun, cool new protein could be. We have our core staples that are our lifeblood. We've got our brisket, our pork, our ribs, are phenomenal. Our chicken, it's Amish chicken from a farm here in Ohio, so it's really great quality products that we work with. But what is that next protein that will drive, the customer to come and see us and to try it and do new stuff? And we just finished a really great LTO for pastrami, which I'm so proud of. So we took brined briskets,
Oh,
rubbed them down in mustard and seasoning rub that we made back of house, and we smoked it for about 16 hours over hickory, and then just carved this pastrami to order. So we had a pastrami sandwich. You can get it by the pound, or we had a Texas Reuben that had this Texas aioli, which was mustard and pickled jalapenos with the pastrami, coleslaw, pickles on bun. Oh my God, it was delightful. It was so much flavor. It was
holy
juicy. It
shit.
was
That sounds good.
right. So constantly trying to play around with some new proteins. So that's always a focus. A lot of meat in my diet because of my job. But it's not just the meat, right? Like we got to figure out what else people are looking for. So we're testing a bunch of new stuff right now. We have a whole new menu that's currently in test. So there's some new menu items that we're having fun with. Bringing in queso and making some loaded nachos with barbecue sauce and some smoked
Oh, yeah.
pork and a blue ribbon queso that we developed. Yeah, you'd be surprised how often I try like sauces or like I had 5 different types of queso that we had to do like tasting of, and you just eat queso all day, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's dynamic, kind of what I do. One day it could be I'm eating 5 different types of queso to say this is the right one, and then it's another day where I've got 20 briskets and I'm like, ooh, that one didn't cook right. Why didn't it cook right? And then you're just eating and eating and eating. So,
By the way, I had no idea about all the yield testing that you do for the meat so often. Which is so cool to hear, and also it reminds me, like we spent like 5 years, I did with my team, testing thousands of these ingredients, and I remember like literally like small dicing, red bell peppers and carrots and ginger, and like the yield, and over time like testing hundreds of pounds of this to get the yield, and it kind of sucked actually.
it's tedious.
It was not really fun after a while.
It is definitely tedious.
But once it's done, which is good. So that's sort of like this more infrequent testing that you're doing, but like how often are you, because you guys have, how many locations do you have now?
73.
Wow. So like how often are you, and how are you doing QA across all of these, locations? Like how do you sort of maintain consistency?
So we have a great team of, the general managers, market leaders, regional directors who are in the joints every day. And these guys are QA folks, right? They're in there, they're double checking that their teams have everything they need, that they're doing them the right way, tasting food every day and making sure that it's the right, what we call competition quality. It hits our competition quality standards. So there's a bunch of folks out there that always have their eye on it. And, my team and I, we try and get out to locations as often as we can. If they're local to us, it's easy to just kind of drive over once every week or so. But I make it a point to go and visit other markets, right? So we're in 9 states. We're going to enter our 10th state here this summer by going into Florida. So we open up in Winter Park, which will be pretty exciting. And just making sure that we're there and we're available for the teams. So if they're like, hey, look, this just doesn't look right, can you help troubleshoot it with me? We're there to help. We're able to fix a problem and course correct pretty quickly to make sure that they're getting that consistent number.
Yeah. By the way, are the teams ever like a part of coming up with new menu items?
They are. It's actually we've got a great culture at City Barbecue in the sense that we have developed this really cool program for Pitmaster. It's a Pitmaster certification course. And GMs and market leaders have to interview to participate, and then you get selected. It's a 9-month class that we put together that starts with a partnership with OSU, and they do a day at Ohio State learning meat science in their meat science department. So really getting to understand,
Wow.
the animal down at the protein at raw level and the molecular level, and how meat reacts to heat and smoke and flavor, and what the Maillard reaction is. So they get that piece. And then there's a second hands-on course where they learn about how to build a fire and maintain a fire, and different types of smokers, and how the smoke affects the meat, and how to build flavors, right? Is it seasoning? Is it marinades? Is it injections? How you trim meats? And then learning different regional flavors, right? What chicken tastes like on oak versus mesquite versus hickory, or what a Alabama barbecue sauce tastes like versus, a Kansas City style or a Memphis style or Carolina Gold. So they go through that. And then graduation is actually a competition, oddly enough, that we host at our test kitchen, where they'll come in and they have to do a ribs, chicken, and a specialty dish on these smokers that we have. And then they present it to the judges, which usually consists of, our founder, our CEO, past winners, myself. And then of course, we judge them, they get scored, and then we crown a pitmaster and a grand champion and all this stuff. And it's a lot of fun, but I have this base of pitmasters who have gone through the course that have that I could tap into and reach out and say, hey, what are some cool things that you're seeing, or based on, and these guys are in the restaurants every day, right? So they're seeing the food go out every single day. So they're able to provide some really great ideas and some information for me to help kind of spark some innovation. So we've got the Pitmaster group. We've got our President's Club that we leverage. Cool. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I've got a ton of great resources.
What's the President's Club?
The President's Club is made up of our top performing GMs and catering managers. So if your restaurant hit all these benchmarks via sales and guest feedback and a few other metrics, they are awarded President's Club. So it's about usually 8 to 10 folks, but it's our elite. It's our top brass GMs that know our business in and out, and they're really able to say, hey, based off of my experience with the brand and the operations, these are some really cool ideas that I think will work. And it kind of takes a step out of the process for me, right? Because if the GMs at the operator level say, yeah, it'll work, great, right? Like that skips a step of operationalizing it, and jumps it right to, all right, let's get some really cool stuff and get it out to the guest, and then see what the guest says, what that consumer feedback is.
Yeah. And are you all smoking at each individual restaurant?
Yep.
Or is there some that happen to get passed, or how does that work?
Yeah. So every location has 3 smokers on site, and we are constantly, all of the meats are smoked in-house. Those smokers are on 24/7.
That is so much to manage, right? To make sure that everyone is smoking everything properly at but you get such a better product, I'm sure, from that, because they're doing it right there on site.
It's really cool, right? So we put a lot of work and effort into the craft of barbecue and leaning into the techniques of smoking on site at every location. So there's a lot of passion behind what we do, and the folks at the restaurants, at our joints, they have the same passion, and because of that, that's what really puts out great food, and it's something I'm pretty proud of.
Yeah, it's funny because I was going to ask you, there's core values on the website. And what's really interesting is the first core value is safety first, which you would not think of for, any business really, or a restaurant in particular. But I guess it makes a lot of sense if you guys are, live fire smoking at every restaurant. But what's the background of that core value being the number one core value for the restaurant?
We really want to make sure that it all comes down to the people. It's always about the people first, and whether it's our people or the guest, we they are the most important, and making sure that they are safe is definitely a top priority. We're working with live fire, hot equipment, knives. You're constantly cutting things, so we really want to make sure that we take care of our people first, and focusing in on the safety of them is why it's such a top priority.
Yeah. Well, you're obviously you're doing something right there. You just, what was it, number 9 on the top 100 movers and shakers?
Sorry,
you guys are crushing it.
Fast casuals, top 100 movers and shakers. We were awarded number 9, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. So, okay, two questions, but they're basically the same. Like, what's the hardest part of your job, and like, what do you love the most about your job?
Oh gosh, the hardest part of my job is the food that we cook takes a while, right? So, and if you mess it up, you got to take a whole nother day to do it, right? So, if I'm cooking a pastrami or testing a pastrami or another protein, and it's a 16-hour cook, and something isn't right, you got to start all over again, and all over again, and all over again. Which can be defeating sometimes, because it's not like I'm cooking a chicken breast in a saute pan and it takes less than 5 minutes and I can cook another one and another one. But so I'd say that's a little hard. There's also this preconception of, this is barbecue, and I only want this type of barbecue, and I don't want to try new things. So really making sure that anything we add to the menu stays true to the brand and, the heart of what barbecue is, but also is exciting and new and can drive, trial. My favorite thing is being able to try new things, right? Like being able to push through the hard stuff and say, try this pastrami. It is so good. And then watching everyone try it and be like, oh my God, that was amazing. And then seeing feedback from our guests, whether it is comments on social media or surveys that we send out through our loyalty program to just kind of get general feedback on how many items are performing or testing. And I mean, that right there is my absolute favorite part, is seeing how excited my team gets when they try it. So the GMs, the hourly staff, the market leaders, the regional directors, and then the guests, right? Like them coming back and showing their excitement and saying, this was the best sandwich I ever had. This was the best brisket I ever had. These ribs are killer. That's what's most exciting for me.
Yeah. It's funny. This is like a perfect job for you, right? Like, you love barbecue. You've been doing it for like 16 years. You also have this huge background in developing new dishes and things like that. It's like almost like a just what a perfect fit, right? Like that you all found each other. Was was there a long process of how you?
So I've been with the company about 2.5 years, and I couldn't agree more. It was an absolute perfect fit. I was able to really combine my passion as a career with my passion as a side hobby, and make that my everyday. And not everybody can say that. So I'm very lucky and very fortunate. So, it really worked out. It worked out that, the brand was looking for somebody to fill this position that understood barbecue and has the passion and the love for the food that is evident in the culture. And I couldn't agree more. It was a perfect pairing.
Yeah. What are you most excited about right now in terms of the menu?
We have put a lot of heart and soul behind this new menu that we're launching, or that's testing. So we, over the last 12 months, have been working on a menu engineering project where we took a hard look at our current menu and the performance of all the menu items, and decided to dig in and understand that, is this the best presentation for our guests? Is it easy to walk into our joint and order a sandwich and a side and a drink? Or does it make sense when you look up at the digital menu board and where menu items are placed for the guests to interact? Is it easy for them to go through our drive-through and see what they want and order it? So really making sure that we're understanding the guest experience, but parallel to that, making sure that the menu is designed in a way that makes sense right? So our best selling items positioned in the right spot of the menu, so that's the first thing you see. Is it easy to order a drink and a side with your meal? Because for the longest time, we've always had a la carte everything, right? So you order your sandwich separate and you order your drink separate and your side separate. We just introduced combos, so a side and a drink or two sides and a drink. So really did a lot of work behind understanding what that customer experience was, and are we putting out the right menu items in the right format? So we took the last 12 years, dug really deep into that. We actually developed a couple new menu items. So that's what's testing currently. So we have a whole new digital menu board layout. So the menu's easier to read and clearer. We're introducing some new categories, shareables, some updated salads, tacos as a platform. We're really leaning into, crafted sandwiches with our premium meats. So that is in test currently. We're coming close to the end. So once that is ready to go live, that has just been taking up a whole lot of my time and attention. And so I've been really excited to kind of see the results of that labor, right? So we're hearing the guest feedback now. We're seeing some sales results. We're seeing, what guests are thinking of all the hard work we've done for the last 12 months. So yeah, that's been pretty exciting what we've been focusing on.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that come to fruition. Well, I'm gonna make a trip because I've been meaning to get there anyways. So I will definitely let you know. I keep thinking about this pastrami now. Like, by the way, did you go eat pastrami around the country before you?
I'm from Chicago, so I know good pastrami. I'm being from Chicago. But yes, we did. We tried a couple, and it really helped kind of craft the recipe for us. And then we did a couple different iterations in the test kitchen and came up with the recipe that we liked best, and then went from there.
Okay, by the way, you just said Chicago. Like, apparently Chicago is the best pastrami, but
I know you're from New York. I know.
I mean, did you get to New York as well? Did you try New York?
I did not do New York. I mean, I've been to New York in the past, and it's been many, many years since I've done New York. But I guess I stay true to my hometown. For my pastrami in Chicago, my pizza in Chicago. We can have a whole nother podcast talking about Chicago versus New York.
I mean, we'll have some might be a little argument, but that's okay.
Hey,
Ursula on our team. I don't know if you met Ursula. She's a rock star. She's in sort of partnerships and events and some sales for meez, but she used to own a restaurant called Jeff and Jude's in Chicago.
Oh,
and it was like a Jewish deli, and so she made
yeah.
pastrami and corned beef and all that stuff. So. And I'm a huge lover of well, I actually like pastrami way more than corned beef, by the way.
I agree.
But are you going to be doing is it going to be like a classic pastrami style sandwich on rye, or are you doing something different?
So we did it our way. So it was on a bun. It was on a brioche bun with all of our toppings.
Nice. Speaking of toppings, let's talk about sides for a second. What's your take on potato salad? You guys have a potato salad there, I know.
We do.
Is it mayo based?
It is mayo based.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like potato salad is all about the right mayo and the temperature of the salad, and everything else is kind of like, whatever. But
yeah.
Are you a potato salad fan?
You know what? I am a potato salad fan. I am. What's great. So all of our sides are made from scratch in-house. So we bring in the potatoes and we cook them and chill them and cut them up and mix them in with our dressing that we make back of house. So yeah, my preference, we use reds.
Oh,
I
gotcha.
like reds. They have a better texture to them, especially when you cook them. They have that al dente bite, and I think that makes a better presentation than any other potato I've had for potato salad.
Yeah, they don't get as mealy as some other ones. I actually really like fingerling potatoes for potato salad.
You want to get fancy, yes. Fingerlings or like tricolored fingerlings, so it makes it colorful.
Yeah, because they hold up really well.
Yes.
It's like hard to overcook them. Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about a side that's a labor of love. You got to try our collards. So we
tell me about that.
So fresh greens, we'll cook down, slow cook them down. We put pulled pork, double smoked bacon, pulled rib meat into the collard greens with some onions, stock. We make our own chicken stock and pork stock back of house, which is almost unheard of at 73 locations.
Yeah.
And I mean, that thing just simmers for 2 to 4 hours and it just cooks it down. It's got all this meat. It's super tender. It's got a little kick of hot sauce in there. I mean, that right there. And that's a true telltale. So good. True telltale of a Southern restaurant is how good their collards are.
Yeah. I can't believe you put pulled pork in the collards.
Yeah. Pulled pork, bacon, and pulled ribs.
Oh, man. Yeah. You know what I love about collards? I grow a lot of stuff in our we have a big like garden, and collards are like one of the best things to grow. They're so hardy, and they're one of the few things that like will just last, outlast every other plant, and they are so good. Now I'm definitely coming to Columbus to
please do. I will be happy to take you out for barbecue.
Yeah, my team went there. Originally when we first started working with y'all, but I didn't get a chance to go, so I will. Okay, so. Thank you for sharing all that about City Barbecue. I am curious, when you're not working, and you're not competing in sandwich competitions and barbecue and things like that. What do you like? What are you doing when you're not cooking and working?
So oddly enough, I'm a potter. So I belong to a pottery community here in Columbus, and I make mugs and plates and planters and all sorts of things. So I do ceramics.
What?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So is your house just filled with oh my God. All the pots and cups that you make?
I've got like 4 containers out in the garage that are just sitting staring at me that need a home.
I only have done that once, and my wife and I went on a date, and we went to this like pottery thing. We made bowls. But they were so misshapen that it's now just like a holder of knickknacks by my desk because it was terrible. It's really hard. It's a hard skill. I'm sure you have to practice for quite a while to get good at that.
It does. It definitely takes a lot of practice and a lot of muscle memory, but eventually you figure it out, and then you've got some really cool gifts to give away to people.
Yeah. Somehow I feel like in 5 years you're going to be like in pottery competitions.
They have those now.
Competition circuit is all the. I'm sure they do.
Yeah, it's on HBO. Seth Rogen, I think, is the host. It's the American Pottery Throwdown.
That's amazing. I'm sure he's a little intoxicated when he's doing that, but
just a little.
Well, anyways, this was awesome. I'm really glad we got a chance to catch up. I know we missed the last one. But thank you for taking some time, and also thanks for all the support. Really appreciate it.